Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special B-side episode from Media Monarchy. My name's James Evan Pilato, your host and webmaster of the site and show, MediaMonarchy.com, and it's Saturday, May 14th, 2011, and we are coming to you from the home studios of MediaMonarchy.com to give you the B-side to episode 218, all of the news that we couldn't fit in, and of course with our telecommunication breakdown with the blogger difficulties, now all our posts are back online, and we have even more news to go over for you. But we'll begin with the most current news we have concerning the floods here in the States. Mississippi River floodgate opens, inundating Cajun country in Louisiana. Louisiana's Morganza floodway was opened today, sending the torrents of brown water from the Mississippi River into the basin, a move designed to spare Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Now, we do have a post that's now going back several days on MediaMonarchy.com with the musical angle, music landmarks spared from massive floods, and it's from the Associated Press. The Mississippi River rose this past Monday, May 9th, to levels not seen in Memphis since the 1930s, swamping homes in low-lying neighborhoods and driving hundreds of people from their homes. But officials were confident the levees would protect the city's world-famous musical landmarks, including Graceland and Beale Street, and that no new areas would see any serious flooding. We have links to media from all around the world, from CNN to YouTube to National Petroleum Radio to Natural News, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and a couple of more updates related to the massive flooding. Again, from naturalnews.com. Historic Mississippi River flood prompts Army Corps to release Louisiana's Morganza levee, 3 million more acres of land to be inundated with water. Meanwhile, my friends, from the New York Times, Obama shifts to speed up oil and gas drilling in the United States. Now, posted below these, we also have all our related BioWars and EnviroHealth updates, with the reminder that, yes, there is an ongoing nuclear crisis which has not subsided and has only increased, and we've only learned that we've only been lied to about it. Fukushima fuel rods in core of number 1 reactor fully exposed. That's from Bloomberg from about a day and a half ago, and a great take from the intelhub.com that also, I believe, links up a Russia Today clip. Japan confirms Fukushima reactor number 4 leaning and in danger of complete collapse. A slight change of pace mixed in here as we kind of transition into our other BioWars type stories is one from Lauren Coleman on Copycat Effect. Human quakes, and asking the question, is there something in the air? Noting again the Twilight language and copycat effect of certain events going on in the air, quite literally in the air, in our airport insecurity. But our last few EnviroHealth BioWars notes, 83 cases of autism associated with childhood vaccine injury compensated in federal vaccine court. You got to get that from the press release, prnewswire.com. Meanwhile, North Carolina School District to give away an iPod and a laptop to kids who participate in a vaccination contest. And as if that wasn't bad enough, we close with one from the Telegraph. Babies given anti-obesity drugs in the womb. Now, as long as we're mentioning Fukushima, we'll pick up a couple of those related posts on some of the other sites around the Media Monarchy Kingdom, such as this from cyberspacewar.com. Fukushima HARP nuclear attack by CIA, DOE, and BP. In an Exopolitics TV interview, the often paired Alfred Weber interviews radiation expert Loren Moret on planet Earth as a weapon of war. Weber and Moret believe international war crimes networks lie behind many of the recent HARP-triggered natural disasters, including Fukushima. Moret fingers perps in the network, CIA, DOE, and BP as tools used by London bankers. Moret's highly developed worldview sees London bankers and the Queen of England at the epicenter of power in the Western world. Now, the interesting angle to this is bringing to mind Stephen Chu and Stephen Koonin, the guys who essentially maybe made this Stuxnet worm in the first place. And are they the front men? And this piece from my man Alan in Omaha, lead writer and editor over on cyberspacewar.com, gets into them and the role they may play in their connection to banksters and BP as the front men, the apparently inept, and the disaster response in Japan, and tying all of those things together. I'm not coming down on any one side, my friends, as in so many ways we leave it all up for you to make your own decisions. We jump to Food World Order for our other Fukushima-related update, and I got to thank my man Robert at work for turning me onto this, and we grab it from treehugger.com. Fukushima Plate tells you if your sushi is radioactive. After the problems at Fukushima, concerns about radiation contaminating fish stocks jotted up, and reasonably so. Many people were and are worried about the levels of radiation in the food they're eating. Designer Nils Ferber has come up with a concept design that would put diners at ease, a plate that glows as it detects radiation in your food. The Fukushima Plate is an ordinary kitchen plate with a built-in radioactive meter to visualize your food's level of contamination. It might become an indispensable tool of survival in the future. While you wouldn't necessarily want this at home, and you can ask the question, why not just use a Geiger counter? This, I imagine, would be something for restaurants to be able to serve to their customers to say, see, our fish is okay. We're going to go ahead and pick up the other story that we have for you on Food World Order, and it's not one story, it's 15 stories. It's the binge and purge, stamp out hunger and flammable water. Today, May 14th in the United States, is something called Stamp Out Hunger Day. It's the largest single-day food drive in the U.S., and we have links to videos and articles about that from the Branford Patch and from other local and regional media. Essentially, it's where you put food out for your letter carrier to take. And I will admit that in looking around in the cabinets, there was nothing I could give away. A lot of my cans and things that are non-perishable are dented or damaged, and that's how I got them in the first place from my job. And I don't really think they want a bunch of damaged and dented and sometimes slightly dated things, so I made the trip to the store quickly and bought a couple good cans of local, organic, BPA-free beans from Eden Organics. So I did my little guilty white boy liberal part. 20 heartbreaking facts about child hunger and poverty. That comes, of course, from the land of lists. That's the economiccollapseblog.com. And furthermore, down the list on this binge and purge on foodworldorder.com, Kansas wheat production could be the lowest since 1996. That's from grainnet.com. Garden sharing, farming meets social networks. That's from good.is, and that is probably coming, hopefully, to all our towns. Groups demand USDA and the DOJ bust ag food monopolies. That's from Food Freedom. And The Telegraph getting into GM soy, the invisible ingredient poisoning children. Meanwhile, from WISTV.com, good news. Organic food company Amy's Kitchen is bringing 700-plus jobs to South Carolina. They are opening a new facility there, and they are actually a family-owned business. I believe we've mentioned Amy's Kitchen, Amy's Organics, recently on the show or on Food World Order. Meanwhile, another bit of good news. Kroger's joins effort to block the use of BPA. That's from dispatch.com. And fracking linked to flammable drinking water. That is from allgov.com. Yes, the proof is out. And the great reminder, and thanks to Mike Rivera at whatreallyhappened.com, pointing to the story on the intelhub.com and reminding us that the Department of Homeland Security hired an Israeli company to secretly spy on anti-fracking activists in Pennsylvania and in other areas, and those guys' claims, that would be the activists, are now proven right and confirmed. So will we hear an apology from Reichland Security and their friends in the Mossad Mafia? Not bloody likely. We now move to the main site in the kingdom, MediaMonarchy.com. This is one of the stories we go over in the most recent New World Next Week episode, but because of the telecommunication breakdown and the blogger woes, it was lost, and I was not able to do it on yesterday's show. So here it is, just to read it back into the record for you. Emergency alert plan coming to your smartphone, and Washington's blog asks the question, is this valuable information or scaring you into submission, my friends? I post up the entire article, and there's a lot more information included in that story that we grab from the New York Times, but of course we give you a fuller amount of the subtext and the context, the things that most of the other main websites won't do. The related is that on the same day that this plan was announced, and PLAN is an acronym for Personal Localized Alerting Network. This plan was announced the same day that a Senate panel was grilling Apple and Google on their collection, use, and abuse of location data, and you can get more on that from Syracuse.com. And of course, this flashes back and relates quite intimately, and it's only going to come together more in the coming weeks and months. The story we covered for you several months back, February to be precise, when the FCC announced the plans for nationwide presidential emergency alerts to be tested. And if you have a new smartphone, there will be no way for you to opt out when the president, when the leader wants to appear on your telescreen. Continuing back to cyberspacewar.com, because as we say so many times, it's all intimately connected, my friends. We hit the DEF CON on Cyberspace War. That's our sort of news purge-like list of headlines. Secret Service Global Hell Expendables. And we begin with one from federalnewsradio.com. Cyber warfare rules included in defense bill. Meanwhile, White House unveils their cybersecurity proposal. That is from Reuters. The Secret Service takes to Twitter. More on that from the French agency Press. And after approving the NBC buyout, FCC commissioner becomes a Comcast lobbyist, as the new FCC chairman applauds his colleagues departing to become an FCC lobbyist. Change-alleluia. And speaking of change-alleluia, Obama met with Gabrielle Giffords and her husband and his identical Astro twin in Florida as Giffords aims to return for shuttle launch. And that reminds me, I was going to try and look up before we began to tape this show when they're going for the Endeavour again, and we'll look it up. NASA clears Endeavour's final voyage for this coming Monday. So that answers that question. Yeah, Gabrielle Giffords, the woman who was shot and no one is allowed to see by some guy who had the grinning egregore, like my man Clyde Lewis discusses. And her husband is going to pilot the final space shuttle, and he also has an identical twin. Meanwhile, veteran of 90s cyber gang Global Hell charged in a swatting conspiracy. More on that from Threat Level, and that should remind you, if you've listened, and you should, to yesterday's episode 218. We discussed just how the word conspiracy is used and abused and used pejoratively to talk about folks like you and I, because it puts down debate with an insult that you're just a conspiracy theorist. But it is the number one charge federally landed upon people, that of conspiracy. The definition: when more than one person, at least two people, get together and plan to break the law. You can find out if you're a target in the biggest U.S. BitTorrent lawsuit ever. Again, from Threat Level. Meanwhile, Comcast says they're not blocking Pirate Bay. The problem appears to be impacting several ISPs. But meanwhile, broadband leads to drug abuse. So says a new study reporting from the register.co.uk. And meanwhile, under lock and key, PC iris scanner security device set to go on the market in months. More on that from the Daily Mail. And we do have a little bit on Google's Blogger finally limping back into action after their 20-plus hours of downtime. And as we note, the media monarchy kingdom has now fully recovered, but others apparently not so lucky, as Lauren Coleman of copycateffect.blogspot.com, I think, has lost his post on the latest Twilight language and copycat event. Meanwhile, quickly, the rest of our DEF CON headlines on cyberspacewar.com. PlayStation Network hack launched from Amazon EC2. Dropbox lied to users about data security, a complaint alleges. That complaint going to the FTC. Meanwhile, Netflix gets into the metered broadband debate and calls it a pure cash grab, as they're not pulling punches in the debate, as the mainline TV firms want to keep Netflix down. No mercy for Gary McKinnon as Obama prepares for UK visit. Holder insists U.S. will not bend on extradition. Meanwhile, Vigilant Guard 11 going on as responders train for cyber attacks on the Madison, Wisconsin power grid. And the final note on this DEF CON: California students jam out with musical robots. Kraftwerk said it. We are the robots. Bow, 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 bow.